I'd like to welcome you now to the 5th Dr. Frank Bicknell Lecture of the 2011-2012 season. In addition to tonight's program, the last of the 2011 and 12 season will be on Wednesday, May 16th, 2012, and the Society will co-host a program with the Ford House at the Edsel and Eleanor Ford House. Mike Hauser, marketing manager at the Detroit Opera House, will present a program relating to his latest book, Remembering Hudson's, the Grand Dame of Detroit Retailing. The J.L. Hudson Company redefined the way people in our area shopped and enjoyed leisure time. It should be noted that the company's founder, Joseph L. Hudson, was Eleanor Clay Ford's uncle, and Eleanor and Edsel Ford were married in that home on November 1st, 1916. This brings me to introduce Mike Skinner, who is in charge of all these programs and does a fabulous job. So he'll give you a bit more information.
Great, thank you, Susan. Thank you very much. Well, this is a little bit more casual than most of our programs, and hopefully you all had a chance to have a Coney dog beforehand. But I'm excited to have a new book as our topic tonight called Coney Detroit. Explains why Detroit became the world capital for Coney Island hot dogs. The story begins with Greek immigrants selling hot dogs from carts and developed into hundreds of Detroit area restaurants run by people of many nationalities. You'll see and hear about notable Coney Islands outside of Michigan and learn how Detroit became ground zero for Coney Island hot dogs. The book, which I'm sure you've seen has been passed around, explains more about that, and it shows the families and individuals that stand beyond the counters and often are the owners that serve up Detroit's favorite food. I'd like to thank National Coney Island for the donation of the hot dogs and Coney dogs that we had tonight, and note that their founder, James Giftos, lived in Grosse Pointe Woods from the time he opened his first store at the Macomb Mall in 1965 until his passing. Our authors tonight, there are two, are really excited to have them with us, are Katherine Young and Joe Grimm. Katherine is a reporter at the Detroit Free Press, covering Michigan's economy and other business subjects. Before joining the Free Press in May of 2007, she worked for the Dallas Morning News and the Detroit News. She's a graduate of Brown University and Columbia University's Graduate School of Journalism. Her love of all things Coney was inspired by her husband, Rich Fisher, who introduced her to the delicious hot dogs at American Coney Island in Detroit many years ago. Joe was a lifelong Detroiter and a member of the advisory board for the Great Lakes book series at Wayne State University Press. No wonder that's where the book came from, right? Yes, following a 31-year newspaper career, 25 years of them spent with the Detroit Free Press, became a journalism professor at Michigan State University and drove down from Michigan East Lansing today, so we appreciate you doing that. He teaches, writes, and edits, and provides journalism career advice. He likes to try new Coney Island restaurants and loves to take visitors to taste the side-by-side challenge of the American and Lafayette Coney Islands in downtown Detroit. Katherine, Joe, I'll turn it over to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for coming out tonight on such a beautiful spring evening. You may see me nod my head a little bit at my Coney collaborator, Joe, because with our technical system tonight, he is going to be in charge of moving the pictures. Normally that's something that I can do from up here. So, my name is Katherine Young, and I'm here tonight with Joe, as Mike mentioned. We are the co-authors of a new book called Coney Detroit. And we're thrilled to be here tonight with you to talk about one of our favorite subjects, Coney dogs and Coney Islands. Now, I'm just imagining that most of you are here tonight because you love Coney dogs too. Do I have that right? Let's see a show of hands. How many people really love Coney dogs? All right.
Right in place. Is that true? I don't want to say it too well.
All right. Coney dogs are Detroit's signature food. But living here, it's easy to take them for granted. We grow up eating them. Coney Islands are everywhere, and we all have our favorites. But when you go outside the state, you quickly realize that Detroit and several other cities here in Michigan are pretty unique. We are the Coney capital of the world. We have hundreds of Coney Islands, whereas other states only have a handful, if that. Our closest competitor is Houston, which has one Coney chain, but we can easily top that. We have 3 major Coney chains, Leo's, National, and Kirby's, plus several smaller ones like L. George's and the George's Senate Coney Island chain, among others. Michigan is also blessed to have a number of Coney Islands that have been around for decades. These old-fashioned Coney Islands are featured in our book. Unlike the chains and most newer Coney Islands, these restaurants serve Coney dogs and not much else, but they have been around for generations and they have lots and lots of loyal customers. You may ask, why did the Coney dog take off in Detroit? No one knows for sure, but people speculate that Coney dogs are well suited to the area's working class culture. They are fast, tasty, and inexpensive food. It also didn't hurt that the Detroit region has long been the home of several fantastic hot dog makers who produce some very high quality hot dogs. Detroit was also very fortunate to have one Greek family, the Karos family, that has played a major role in making the Coney dog popular, not just in the city's downtown, but also in the suburbs. I'll tell you more about that shortly. You have probably wondered where Coney dogs came from. Their origins are shrouded in mystery, but we do know that in the early 20th century, many Greek and Macedonian immigrants began serving Coney dogs in several states throughout the country. I want to stop right here and tell you that there are 2 types of Coney dogs. Here in Detroit, our Coney dogs are natural casing hot dogs topped with the beanless chili, mustard, and onions. But in many other cities, including Flint and Jackson, Coney dogs come with the dry meat topping instead of the beanless chili. If you ask me, either way is delicious. But if you're a Detroiter, you probably prefer the beanless chili. In the early 20th century, there were Coney Islands serving both kinds of Coney dogs in different parts of the country. There is some speculation that the Greeks named these hot dog concoctions after the amusement park Coney Island, New York, which many of them might have visited or heard about after arriving at Ellis Island, New York. But it's uncertain whether this is really how Coney dogs got their name. For Greek and Macedonian immigrants, serving Coney dogs became a way to make a living in their adopted countries. And no, there were no hot dogs in Greece, so this was an acquired taste. Some became very successful in the business, and Coney dogs became their ticket to the American dream. Their success attracted others, and it wasn't long before many Albanians also opened Coney Islands. Today, Greeks, Macedonians, and Albanians still dominate the Coney business, but they're with 2nd and 3rd generation family members now running the restaurants. But you can also find other ethnic groups such as the Lebanese, Yemenis, and Koreans. As you probably know, the most famous Coney Islands in Michigan and the world are the American and Lafayette Coney Islands here in downtown Detroit at the crossroads of West Lafayette and Michigan Avenue. Fierce rivals, the 2 Coney Islands have competed against each other since the mid-1930s and have been the subject of 3 recent cable TV shows. 2 Greek brothers, Bill and Gust Karos, who were sheep herders from Dara, a small village in southern Greece, opened Lafayette, Coney Island in 1923, where American Coney Island stands today. Differences between the two brothers caused them to split up, with Bill Karros moving next door to where Lafayette stands today. In 1936, Gus Karros opened American Coney Island at its present location. And believe it or not, at one time, there were 3 Coney Islands on the same block: American, Lafayette, and State Coney Island. With its red chairs and white tables, American has tried to change with the times while preserving its rich heritage. Lafayette, on the other hand, has tried to keep almost everything the same. American is still owned by members of the Karros family, but Lafayette was sold to a group of its longtime employees in 1993. When it comes to their Coney dogs, the main difference between American and Lafayette is the chili. American's is a bit spicier, while Lafayette's is beefier. As is to be expected, both Coney Islands have their own loyal fans, and numerous debates have sprung up through the decades over which one has the better Coney dog. Joe and I suggest you try both and then decide. But we think it's important for you to know that American and Lafayette have helped spawn dozens and dozens of other Coney Islands. Many of the employees who worked at these 2 restaurants went on to start their own Coney Islands in other parts of the city, in the suburbs, in the state, and outside of Michigan. Bill and Gus Karros had also had a group of nephews that went on to launch the Kirby's Coney Island chain, which is very popular in the suburbs. And Tony Karros, the oldest son of Bill Karros, the founder of Lafayette, brought Coney Islands into shopping malls around the region. Of course, downtown Detroit was not the only hot spot for Coney dogs. From 1936 until 1964, the corner of Saginaw and Jackson Streets in Pontiac was a Coney paradise, with 3 popular Coney Islands: Pete's Coney Island, Walt's Original Coney Island, and Angel's Coney Island, serving thousands of Coney dogs a week. In the mid-1960s, unfortunately, this Coney dog hub ended when the city of Pontiac forced the Coney Islands to move to make way for a new building. Today, Pete's and Walt's are still serving Coney dogs down the street from each other on M59. The major Coney Island chains that you eat at today, Leo's, National, and Kirby's, were all started by Greek immigrants in the 1960s and early 1970s. Today, National and Kirby's each have more than 20 restaurants, and Leo's, which franchises, has 42 locations, including Coney Islands in Flint and East Lansing. These 3 Coney chains were not the first ones in Metro Detroit, but their predecessors, including Onassis Coney Island, closed many years ago. There are, of course, many other notable Coney Islands throughout Metro Detroit, like Athens Coney Island in Royal Oak, Bill's Drive-In in Ypsilanti, and Dooley's Place in southwest Detroit. But it's also worth venturing outside the area to get your own Coney fix. Flint has a rich Coney history all its own. The city's Coney craze started with Flint's original Coney Island on Saginaw Street, which opened in 1919. That Coney Island, launched by Sam Brayan, George Brown, and Nick George, who were all Macedonian immigrants, was so successful that it sold 4,000 Coney dogs a day in the mid-1920s. The original was similar to American and Lafayette in that it helped spawn a number of other Coney Islands in the city. Unfortunately, the original closed its doors in 1979. Today, popular Flint spots for Coney dogs are Angelo's Coney Island on Davison Road, which opened in 1949, Starlight Coney Island, and Mega Coney Island. Most of the Coney Islands in Flint buy their meat topping from Abbott's Meat in Flint and then mix in their own spices. If you're heading west from Detroit, you should not miss the Coney dogs served at two longtime Coney Islands in downtown Jackson. Virginia Coney Island and Jackson Coney Island have operated from opposite ends of the same block since the mid-1930s. Like American and Lafayette, they each have their own loyal following. They serve Coney dogs with the dry meat topping, just like in Flint. Unlike American and Lafayette, however, the differences between Virginia and Jackson are more subtle. Joe and I suggest you definitely try both dogs. If you're looking for more of a Detroit-style Coney dog, and one that's a little bit closer to here, Port Huron has a Coney gem not to be missed. Mama Vicky's Coney Island on Huron Avenue, which used to be called Coney Island Lunch, was started by a Greek immigrant in 1917. Owned by the Pozios family since 1976, Mama Vicky's has branched out to include two other Coney Islands in Fort Gratiot and Macomb Township. In Port Huron, Coney dogs come with a slightly different twist. The beanless chili goes on top of the mustard and onions instead of the other way around. And the hot dogs are skinless. The locals call it over-the-top chili. These are some of the highlights of Michigan's rich Coney landscape. We are truly blessed to have so many outstanding Coney Islands. Outside of Michigan, you are lucky if you can find one. I know some people may be wondering, what makes a good Coney dog? It's actually pretty simple. A high-quality, grilled, natural casing hot dog to give you that snap. A tasty beanless chili or meat topping, mustard, onions, and a steamed bun. The chili is what sets one Coney dog apart from another. Many Coney Islands in Metro Detroit use chili from National Chili Company and mix in their own spices. But some make their chili from scratch using long-time secret family recipes. The variety and the type of chili used makes eating Coney dogs in Detroit so much fun. You never know what you are going to get. There can be big or small differences in taste from one Coney Island to the next. Joe and I urge you to get out of your Coney comfort zone and explore. We think you'll be surprised by what you find. Now I want to read a short excerpt from Coney Detroit that helps explain why we are so passionate about Coney dogs. The last bite. New York and Chicago are tops when it comes to pizza. Boston can boast about its lobster and clam chowder. And you can't visit New Orleans without sampling its famous Cajun cuisine. But nowhere in the world can match Detroit and Michigan when it comes to Coney dogs. With each new decade, demand for these tasty concoctions has grown stronger, as evidenced by the many Coney Island restaurants opening in the state every year. The Coney story is not just, though, a celebration of food. It's a tribute to the men and women that work at hundreds of Coney Islands in Michigan and other states who keep the Coney tradition alive. These are the people who toil long hours slicing thousands of onions by hand and making batch after batch of their special beanless chili or meat topping. Day after day, year after year, some of them 24 hours a day. For some, Coney Islands turned out to be their ticket to the American dream, affording them a way of life they never dreamed possible. For others, it's about making a living, doing something they love. As the Coney dog prepares to enter its second century, the beloved hot dog is poised to win the hearts and stomachs of new generations. Culinary trends may come and go, but Detroit's signature food has proven that its appeal is timeless. Now I'm going to let Joe come up and tell you some more fun and interesting information about Coney dogs and Coney Islands.
You made me hungry. We're in great luck tonight because this book would never have been done if it weren't for Katherine, and if it weren't for these two gentlemen, I'm sorry, these two guys over here. Sorry, you've never been called that before, I know. So who's he talking about? Bobby Alcott and Ted Fine, and we're gonna all four of us entertain questions in a minute. I think I had the idea for this book back in the days before the Free Press changed owners, like several years before Katherine got to the Free Press. And I had false start after false start trying to get it done, to the point where one of my brothers told my mother, you know, Mom, there's really not going to be a Coney book. He's not working on one, he's just eating Coneys. That was partially true. But Katherine got involved and she wanted to move things along. Bobby and Ted were there driving the photography. The book is 10,000 smart words, most of them by Katherine, and about 125 photographs by 12 photographers. And I think the only thing I maybe wrote was the title. So I wrote 2 words, and everybody else did all the work. And I ate a lot of Coneys, so it's a good deal. So we're going to have them come up. We're going to turn it over to questions. One of the things that fascinates us is this is really a story not about Coney dogs, it's a story about people, is what we learned, and that's how Katherine really set up the book. It's a story about these people and these families and how they came as immigrants with no jobs, hardly any money, and they created one of Detroit's iconic things. I mean, everybody knows Detroit for these Coney dogs. So we're going to answer some questions, but first I have to tell you what questions we will not answer. So don't ask, because we won't say. Do not ask us who invented the Coney dog. The book, believe it or not, has it's kind of stirred up a huge fight. Yeah, we did. One of the things that we did was we went over to the library, the Detroit library, and we got the old city directories, and we were looking up like who had the first Coney Island in Detroit. And around the 1920s, there were a lot of several Coney Islands in the downtown area, and a lot of Chinese restaurants. And they were serving that booming population of people who had come here to work, and they needed a fast meal that wasn't too expensive. So there's a lot of chop suey places, and several Coney Island lunch counters, several that didn't survive till today. But way over in Jackson, is anybody here from Jackson? Good. I mean, you got to feel for the people in Jackson. I hope there's nobody here from the press, Ben. The people in Jackson are known for having the world's largest walled prison. I mean, that's not a big draw. You know, you get sent there, you don't go there. And I think trying to improve their image, they claim to have been the birthplace of the Republican Party, which Wisconsin fights with them about. And now they're really stepping up the campaign to say they invented the Coney Island hot dog there. And there's a fight going on. There's a columnist over there who's pushing this, and his evidence is that, well, that's what people think happened, and just because you can't prove something doesn't mean it's not true. Which, we need a higher bar than that. So we're not going to get into discussion about who invented the Coney dog. As Katherine said, there were Coney dogs all over around the 1920s, around 1920 itself, maybe in the teens. Now, how do you find the place, and how do you explain how overnight, in the 19 teens, Coney dogs went all over the eastern half of the country. I don't know how you explain that. So don't ask us who invented the Coney dog. Do not ask us, let's see, do not ask us which is our favorite Coney dog. We will not say. Up until a month ago, before this book came out, nobody cared which Coney dog I liked. Now everybody asks, what's my favorite? We anticipated this, and we have a pact with each other. We know our favorites, and we have more than one, and we will not reveal our favorite Coney dog. And the fact of the matter is, we have not tried them all yet. So, my jury is still out. Do not ask us how many Coney Island restaurants there are. I thought maybe there might be 200 in the Detroit area. Way low. Way low. Just the chains that Katherine was talking about, that's 100. Then there's a bunch of other cool ones, some of them in Coney Detroit, some others that aren't. And right now on the Coney Detroit website, ConeyDetroit.com, to sort of make the point that this is the epicenter of the Coney Nation. I've been doing a Coney Island a day for 100 days, and there will be plenty left over. We did 2 weeks for Greek Independence Day. We did 2 Greek weeks. We're going to do a couple of weeks called My Coney Has a First Name, because there are so many Coneys with first names. Right now we're doing Coneys with beautiful art. I don't know if you've seen the line drawings at the National Coney Island in the airport. That's one. A lot of national places out here have kind of, I was in a really cool place that I haven't taken Katherine to yet. It's called Frank's a Lot, and the owner painted a mural on the wall, and that's pretty cool. There's like a really crude mural behind Joe's Top Dog Coney Island in Dearborn. There's just a lot of art at all these Coney Islands. So we're going through 100 Coney Islands just to further make the point that we are top dog when it comes to Coneys. But I don't know, are there 400 Coney Islands here? Are there 500? They change all the time. One of the things we did for the book, if you look in the back, there's a map of our old military roads. Those roads were originally built as places where people could get Coney dogs. There's another story about, you probably heard a story, it's apocryphal, about those roads being used to move cannons. No, Coneys. So it's Michigan Avenue, Gratiot, Woodward, Grand River. We drove down those streets counting Coney Islands and stopping in at a lot of them. And in fact, in one of them, I thought I was going to get chained to a stool in the restaurant because the owner wondered, why did that guy come in, snap a picture, and run out the door? And Katherine had to come in and explain what I was doing there. And eventually we were released. But I think on those streets, just those 4 surface streets, we found about 50 Coney Islands on each one of them. We took them out pretty far because they keep having Coneys. We couldn't stop. So don't ask us how many Coney Islands are there. It changes pretty much every day. A new one opened near my house recently called Lyons Coney Island, which is really great because there's only like 10 Coney Islands within 3 miles of my house. So don't ask us who invented the Coney dog. Don't ask us what our favorite is. Don't ask us how many there are. But ask us anything else you like. I do want to have these 2 bums come up here. And is that better than gentlemen?
Yeah, more accurate.
Yeah. We're gonna save some of their pictures for later. Maybe at the end of questions, do you think? Like kind of as a, should we show it now or do you want to show it later?
I show it now.
We'll show it now. You want to see some more of their pictures before we have them come up? And then all 4 of us can answer questions if you have. I'm sure you have some because it's a pretty deep subject. Let me show you a little bit more of their work.
You have the tray.
Yeah, that's what he's gonna show.
So we're going to show now. And okay.
Hit the play button. Yeah, there, it's centered.
Yeah, I
play
just
button.
want to center it up a little
Yep,
bit.
hit the play button.
See if I can make it bigger.
Yeah,
Okay,
there
you
you
ready?
go.
I'll hit the play button now.
I got the audio.
Hold on.
There's a hot dog.
In the beginning, there was the hot dog, and it was good. So grilled Coney Island hot dogs were sent throughout the cosmos. In just one place, Coney dogs multiplied until they numbered like the stars in the heavens. We call that place Coney Detroit. Coney Detroit is more than just a place. Detroit and Michigan are the center of the Coney universe. Come, enter Coney Detroit. See how Detroit became capital of a Coney nation. Meet this hot dog's heroes. Embrace Coney culture. Say 2 up, heavy onions, 1 Lucy with cheese, and know what that means. Master Detroit and Flint style Coneys and all their variations. Come, Coney Detroit is waiting for you. It is open 24 hours a day with 99-cent specials and chili fries.
All right. It always makes me cry. Probably the onions. Did you see James Giftos in there?
Yeah.
What a beautiful man. We were shooting one of the last, you were shooting, we were just eating hot dogs. We were shooting one of the last pictures for the book, and we were at, we were in American, and there was a homeless guy on the street, and he said, "Can I get something to eat?" And he was like interrupting us, and rude. And they said, "Get him in here and give him a bowl of chili." And they're just generous people. I don't know how they stay in business. They're close to the ground level, and they help others out. Come up here, you guys, and you might want to. This is Grosse Pointe right here. These guys, they were not just 2 of the 12 photographers on the project. Get over there. These were the guys who organized, especially this one here. I would call you creative director, and I would call you whip cracker for getting the stuff in, And so they had themselves and 10 other people shooting all over Michigan. We had some work done out of state to bring you the story, which we really thought was kind of a visual story. So,
Including Las Vegas,
Las Vegas.
Henderson, Fort Lauderdale, St. Pete, and
Worcester.
Worcester,
Worcester.
Massachusetts. So
Great Coney Islands in those places. If you're ever out there, in fact, Katherine, I think, went down to St. Petersburg just to try the Coneys.
And we just missed by press time, the new one that they put up on Sunset Strip in Hollywood.
Yeah.
So maybe for book 2.
More Conies.
So I just want to ask Bobby and Ted, since they really took the lead for all the photographers on the book, what was the most interesting thing that you discovered in going around to a lot of these Coney Islands and taking these fabulous photographs?
No, you can't tell that story. Actually, Katherine should tell that story because she was there. In the basement of Lafayette.
The basement of the Lafayette, the
Oh,
Purple Blanket.
You wanna tell that story? You were
Well, Bobby, go ahead with the meeting.
Well,
Yep.
we ended up going to about 45 different places. And the nicest thing was all of them, as you can tell, filled us up pretty well. But, we saw a lot of interesting things, and it was really about the people. Our favorite part was the people. And like Joe was saying, and Katherine was saying, there's so many cultures involved. Lafayette Coney, if you go down in their basement where the restrooms are, there's a...
Somebody's been there.
Yeah, not easy to get to as it is.
Pretty nasty.
If you go down, there's kind of a back room. Now, as Katherine was saying, one of the defining characteristics between different Coneys are the things they put in the sauce, the chili sauce, whether it's spices or meats or whatever. There's kind of a back room where the employees go, and the employees and owners of Lafayette are from Yemen. They're Yemeni. So in one of these back rooms, next to the sausage grinder, the meat grinder, is a prayer blanket. And the dichotomy of having guys praying 5 times a day with the meat grinder next to it, which is, you know, it's a little bit in conflict, but it's just very interesting because it's their world. And if you've ever been to Lafayette, those guys never leave. I mean, it's really amazing. I mean, the same guys are always there. So it was really one of the more interesting things we saw.
I think I wanted to mention that 2 weeks ago we had our kickoff put on by Wayne State University and the Gleaners downtown Detroit on Buffet. And it wasn't mentioned, but it should be, that all proceeds from the writers and the photographers, all the profits will be going to the Gleaners. And in fact, 2 weeks ago tonight, we had it, and I think we had over 400 people, 500 people, 1,000. And it was this big, yeah. But they raised over $1,000 and 5 crates of
5 crates of food. They, Gleaners, they shop smarter than I do. They say every time somebody buys a book, they get to buy 3 more meals from the royalties that have been directed toward them rather than toward. We got our reward just by going to all those places.
It was fun. We got a lot of free food too. But it was really, speaking about the people, they were always sharing. They always wanted to talk to us, and they wanted to show everything that they made. Their sauces, their dogs, Senate's Coney Island.
George's Senate.
George's
Up in
Senate.
Northville.
I mean, he's tremendous amount of Greek food. And we walked out of there, 3 of us, with a box this deep with
Each.
food. Each.
Yeah.
Joe and I were not part of that.
No, we were not. And I can't tell you how many times we walked out of there, just, excuse me.
But I mean, he would just, he took literally 2.5 hours. He told us his story, but he kept saying, you know, you need more grape grape leaves, bring the grape, they need more rice pudding. And they just kept piling the food onto us. Yeah. They're just, everybody we met were just wonderful, wonderful people. Ted wasn't there, well, and Joe's met him, but one of my favorite people I met was a guy named Manny. Ryan, one of the photographers, and I went to Las Vegas. I had another shoot out there, but we went there and we went to a place called Detroit Motor City, Coney Island, which is in Henderson, and quite honestly, it's kind of in the middle of the desert. It's like a strip mall in the middle of the desert. You walk in there and you'd never know you weren't in Detroit. It is Red Wings jerseys and Tigers jerseys and Lions stuff, and it's Faygo, you know, lined up along the wall with Better Made chips. I mean, it was one thing after another. And here's Manny, who is by day an airline engineer, airline mechanic, and he's there. I mean, with his mechanic outfit, you know, kind of between shifts, serving up conies, and he was the most enthusiastic guy I've ever seen. I've never seen anybody who just loved the city. He was from Southwest Detroit, am I correct? And it seems like this whole industry is just filled with people like this. And, you know, if somebody asked me what my favorite part of this project was, other than the fact that we get to feed people with this book, it was the people we met. I mean, it just made you want to go back every time. You can keep going. I mean, it doesn't matter. Edzell at Pete's 2 up in Clarkston. I can keep going.
Well, it's a microcosm of people in general in the Detroit, southeastern Michigan or Michigan area, and people who move out, they never lose that connection. We can go to Massachusetts, we can go to Florida, we can go to Nevada, and we can go outstate to Kalamazoo, Jackson, Port Huron, Bay City, and they're wonderful people. So
I
go out there and experience it.
I don't think I'd want to live in a state that doesn't have a lot of Coney Islands.
Like Ohio.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tony Hawk, that's a different kind of
Yeah.
thing.
Any questions?
Yeah, we
Questions?
just wanted to take some questions.
I'd like to hear some stories about your Coney stories.
Sure.
I'm just wondering, is the video available anywhere?
Well, it's free. It's on YouTube.
It's on YouTube.
It's on the Wayne State University Press site.
And also Coney Detroit.
Yeah, Coney Detroit site too.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Help yourself. Have more grape leaves.
Okay, I have a very important question. How many hot dogs have you eaten? How many?
Okay, Bobby?
Oh, honestly? Like, you mean during this project?
Oh, I think from birth, I'm looking.
Oh. Good Lord, you could probably make an estimation by looking at me, but on this project, quite honestly, it was no less than 100 over the course of 2 years, 2.5 years. If you spread it out over 2 years, it's, you know,
It's not too bad.
we're talking about one a week.
There are evil people at Wayne State. And they made us guesstimate how many hot dogs, Coney dogs we ate. And I said, I have no idea. We don't count them. We just eat them. And Katherine said, no, Joe, I think we probably ate 500. And I said, that's way too many. And I think we settled on almost 500.
No, I don't think it's really.
She's a
we've
pretty
been
good
working on this
reporter,
for a
so
long
I kind of
time.
have to,
So,
but Katherine ate more than I did.
yeah.
I was this way
probably do.
before.
I can't go without a Coney dog, like, for more than 2 weeks.
I can, but I did stop at Julie's for just one on the way here.
I want to mention also, for the people who haven't gotten a book, and you should buy it before you leave, but it's not only the Coneys that are primarily part of the writing and the photography, but also the manufacturing.
Oh, yeah, that's an
You know,
interesting set of stories.
the buns, the hot dogs, and what goes into the obviously the Coney sauce itself. So there's a lot of companies involved. I mean, if Coney's were to disappear, not only would we all have a heart attack and lose 20 pounds, but it'd be a different culture. It'd be
And there's like
different.
a tier 1 supplier. You've got Brown's Buns, Metropolitan
Yeah.
Bakery, you've got a couple good hot dogs. Yeah,
It's not Coven says, it's Coney says.
Kogels, Winners.
Yeah, they're all dependent on all that.
Yeah.
If things continue the way they've been, we could have more people employed in the Coney Island business than
Big three. Oh, we have the big three.
Any other questions?
Katherine, you came from Florida originally, I'm sorry, but your husband is from here. And you say you work downtown. Do you really have at least one a week?
No, I said I try, I can tell if I try to go without a Coney dog for more than 2 weeks, I mean, I actually by the middle of the second week, I'm starting to crave a Coney dog.
You have a serious problem.
I do.
I'm not sure it's a problem.
There's a question back there, sorry.
I do have a question. The first thing I'll say is 100 hot dogs?
Yes.
I do 200 a year. Minimum.
There we
I
go.
do 200 a year.
It's a beautiful
Listen
thing.
to the man.
Yeah. But I have a question. This happened on 3 different occasions with different people, so I'm just wondering if you've heard about this. But I was talking to a guy from New York, maybe 10 years ago, and I started saying, oh, we got this great stuff, we got this thing about Coney Island. You know, he said, oh, really, what's that? I started to describe it, and I noticed we were finished, and he says, no, that's a Michigan hot dog. He was from New York, and he called it a Michigan hot dog.
Yeah.
And I said, really? You know, and at the time I thought, well, okay, maybe. And then independent of that, at a different time, talking to another guy from New York, and I started to talk about, I said, I want to ask you a question. And I said, if I were to describe a thing, and I didn't get halfway through it, he said, Michigan hot dog. So have you heard about that?
Well, Katherine and I have had a lot of fights. And it's because she's bossy. And, and because she's also almost always right. We had a fight about these Michigans. The Michigan is in Vermont, in upstate New York, in parts of Ontario. And you'll be driving down the road, not that I have been driving down the road in Vermont, and you'll see a sign that says Michigans. And you pull in, and you get a thing, and you'd swear it's a Coney dog. And they put this sauce on it, they call it Michigan sauce. And they put it on the dog, and you say, gosh, I'm back in Detroit. So, Coney dogs, the name Coney dog came here, but when it back migrated, the name got changed in some places to a Michigan. And Katherine is such a good reporter, if she doesn't see it, she doesn't write it. So that's why we had a big fight, but I said, this is true. And she said, I'll believe it when I see it. And I think someday we're gonna have to go to Vermont and have a Michigan volunteer. You'll go with us?
Sure, I'll be glad.
This is a real thing. We've talked to a number of people, Bill McGraw is one.
We have run into
And,
it. You're definitely right.
It's a
But
real
it's
thing.
kind of just unique to that part of the country.
Yeah.
I wonder if in New York, it's kind of the battle, since we kind of, in a way, usurped the name Coney from New York. Maybe it's kind of a reverse battle.
Yeah. Well, some people said, why didn't we brand it with our own name? Why did we name this great thing after some other place?
And the people who made that,
Uh,
yeah, they made that decision a long time ago.
Coney dogs they started in so many places. I mean, they started
Yeah.
in Florida and Pennsylvania, New
Oklahoma
Jersey.
and Texas and.
Anybody else, any questions about the photography or the book?
Any stories? If I may tell one, a year and a half ago, my niece emails me from Florida. I'm going there the next day. I need 2 bricks from National Coney Island. I didn't even know what she meant. You could buy it frozen, and when you get with your carry-on and you send it through the machine, the guy wants to know, what the heck is this? And almost stopped me. He said, is that a plastic explosive? It says National Coney Island chili on it. What do you think I've got in that
Depends
container?
what spices you
He almost didn't let me. I had like a half an hour until the plane was taking off. I
It's
said,
24 hours later.
he did let me through.
Delayed
He did let me through. But I thought, this is nuts. This is crazy.
Would that be sad if they took away your...
Yeah. Well, my niece would have been mad at me, that's for sure. But I've put them in dry ice and shipped them to her since then, because I said, I'm not flying with them again.
I wonder how many of you can remember your first Coney Island hot dog. Oh. Well, I can remember mine,
Well, let's
because we
hear it.
had neighbors, I was brought up right down here on Lewiston, right across the driveway were the Mosinas, and they loved the Tigers, and they loved Coney Island hot dogs. My family, on the other hand, had never heard of them. So they took us all to a ball game, and they said, well, we go to the Coney Island afterwards. And we just thought this was bizarre. I mean, we just couldn't imagine it. This was back in the 50s. And so we go in there, and of course, we had the Coney Island, and we were hooked forevermore.
Yeah,
We all
your first
all
Coney.
enjoyed Coney Islands every time we went to the ball
Can you
game.
remember which one it was?
It
Obviously,
was either the
Lafayette or
the
American.
State.
Or state, or
Most
State.
really
Yeah.
were in the 50s.
Oh, nice.
Well, they were really, I think, maybe if you think about it, the ones that everybody knew about. And we didn't have all these satellite
Yeah.
ones all over.
I enjoy
So,
taking
that's
Coney
great.
virgins out for their first...
It's true. I mean, probably other people do that when you have friends come in town. Does anybody take their friends to Coney if they've never been to this area?
The ball game still go before or afterwards. I
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
this is 50 years later.
Yeah.
And I like to take them for a side-by-side, like, go into one of those places, have one Coney, no fries, and a Diet Coke, because we need to watch a little bit. And then go next door, have a Coney over there, fries if you still want them, and then go outside on the sidewalk and pick, make a choice. This is how I found out that my son and his fiancee were compatible. They both like the same thing.
The gentleman in the pink shirt.
Just recently, Coney Island went into Chicago.
And then
Leo's.
Yeah, I mean, they closed.
closed down.
And they closed,
It's a
yeah.
franchise.
Yeah, you know,
There's a lawsuit about that.
yeah, it's tricky, sometimes, a lot of American and Lafayette, I mean, not Lafayette, but American, some of their, some of the founders' offspring have taken, have started Coney Islands in other states like Texas, for example, and it usually hasn't worked out. It's interesting.
Yeah, it's amazing.
I think there's something about Detroit, something about Michigan, where we really, really love these hot dogs, and it doesn't always translate as well.
Chicago is a great hot dog city. That's why they call it the Windy City. And, you didn't know that? And they have their own style. It's a Chicago dog, which you can get around here at another place we had a huge fight about. And I don't know if like people in Chicago said, no, we want a Chicago dog or what. But the people who opened that franchise, I think they alleged in court that they weren't getting the support they needed from the home office.
Right.
Yeah, and I think that there'll be other people that may try to open Coney Islands in Chicago, because there is a lot of young Michiganders who are living there now, so. Any other
Other
questions?
questions here?
Well, I was just gonna say, you talked about introducing people to Coney Island. I've been retired for a number of years, and as far as I'm concerned, and I tell people this, if you want to meet me, we meet at my office, which is the National Coney Island at 8 Mile and Hartford.
Nice to get me
That's my office. My wife's my secretary. Oh, sure.
Well, the other nice thing about Coney is that I had a student from New York University, and I was driving around the city, and I said, "Are you hungry?" And she said, "Yes." And I said, "Well, let's get lunch at the Coney Island." She said, "Okay, where is one?" And I said, "Well, just wait." And we just drove over. Within 3 or 4 blocks, there was a Coney Island. This was Nicky D's. Nicky D was the subject of almost a lawsuit from another company I heard of that has a clown as a mascot.
Mickey.
And they said, "You can't call yourself Nicky D's." They said, "That's my name, Nicky. Everybody calls me Nicky D." And they said, "Well, you certainly can't use that N that looks like a golden arch, and you can't decorate everything in red and yellow." So Nicky D backed off a little bit. But Nicky D has a Detroit-only chain that's up to about 9 now. That's one of the chains we were talking about. But there's offices all over. Offices for all of us. Did you see James Giftos's picture in the?
Yes.
Isn't he I thought that's a beautiful picture. Did Spike take that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Question, I'm sorry.
You know if the chili dogs at Tony Paco's in Toledo have a related history?
That's
we've been there.
Hungarian.
Yeah, we've investigated Tony Pacos.
Yeah, I mean, it's very different from, a Coney dog, so.
I've been
we're
there
not-
3 times to investigate.
Yeah, but we're not able to find,
Good research.
we're not able to find any linkages, if that's what you're asking.
They
so.
take a Hungarian sausage that's kind of big, and they cut it down the long way, and then they cut it in half, and they make 4 dogs out of it. And they have both a beanless and a bean chili. And they serve a lot of deep fried pickles there. It's a nice place. There, the thing is, if you're famous, you sign a bun. And they put the bun on the wall. And I was having one of those hot dogs, and I asked the waitress, I said, "So, is this a Coney dog?" I was thinking it's not really a Coney dog because it's a quarter of a sausage and it's on here. And she said, "No, it's not a Coney dog, it's a Tony dog." So, okay. If you go to Tony Paco's and you ask for an MOD, you get the whole Hungarian sausage in an extra large bun. So it's like having 4 Coney dogs at once. And MOD, of course, stands for Mother of All Dogs. We might have to go back and do more research. For a second, but we decided not to include it in the book.
Any other questions? Well, they'll be signing books in the next room.
Okay,
Don't
thank you
forget
very
about.
much for coming out tonight, we appreciate it.
Thank you.